Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're so pleased to have you join us for another How We Recover panel event. Um, I'm going to go ahead and get started, although I know we have people flowing into the waiting room. And for those of you who are here with us live, I just want to invite you to let us know where you're joining from the world. It's always nice to see people from across the globe. Um, my name is Chelsea, and I'm the executive director at Eat, Breathe, Thrive, which is a nonprofit in the US. And we now work really internationally in over 50 countries around the world. And our mission, we share really similar to the Eating Disorder Foundation, is to prevent and help people recover from eating disorders. Um, we have been doing these collaborative events with EDF now for, I think, about a year, and they are just, I love these. I look forward to them every time. And I'm gonna allow Lydia to introduce EDF and some of our panelists. But I just want to say right at the top that if you're here with us today live, we really hope this isn't just a one-way conversation, that you feel free and welcome and invited to join the conversation. I'll be keeping an eye on the chat. If you have thoughts or questions, just feel free to throw it into the chat. Hi, Liam from Canada. Nice to see you here. From Alberta. Wonderful. And our topic, Lydia will share a little bit more about, is just so timely. And it's about surviving the holidays, which, sometimes it really is a survival emotionally, physically, sometimes with this illness, and really for all of us. It's a time that can bring up so many emotions, loneliness, grief, inadequacy, all of that. We want to be able to have a conversation about that. And if you're in that, let you know that you're not alone, that it's something we all go through. But also have some conversation about how the group in this panel, who are all people that identify as having lived experience of recovery, that's why we call it How We Recover, can share a little bit of wisdom and a little bit of experience of how we confront these challenges, and invite you to as well. So with that, I will hand it to Lydia.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. Always such a pleasure to be joining and to be having this conversation. It's very much what it is. We want to hear input, we want to hear those questions, and really open this up to make it as enjoyable and as rich of a conversation as we can have it. My name is Lydia. I use any pronouns. I am the program director at the Eating Disorder Foundation. We share a very similar mission to Chelsea at Eat, Breathe, Thrive, and we just really want to provide that hope and connection and community for lasting recovery for folks that struggle with eating disorders, disordered eating, and body image concerns. Our topic today is loneliness triggers and awkward conversations, surviving the holidays with an eating disorder. This conversation is so prevalent in our community, and I know in my friends and family circles as well. So I'm really excited to be bringing this here. I'd like to hand it over to our community member, Joan, who is joining us today. If you want to do a brief intro to get the folks to know you a little bit, and then we'll pass it to Gigi, and then we'll dive into some of the questions that Chelsea has prepared for us.
Thank you, Lydia. My name is Joan, and tell me if I'm still muted. Not muted, good. Okay. I've been in recovery for many years. I've experienced some help from Eating Disorder Foundation and from mentoring, and from during the pandemic, taking opportunities all over the United States, at least, to get some help. I don't know what else to say about myself. I'm an artist and a dancer and a musician and a mommy, and I'm a grandma, and my life is full, and I have a full-on eating disorder I'm trying to recover from. So there you go.
Thanks, Joan. My name is Gigi, and I'm talking from the UK right now. I'm a facilitator for Eat, Breathe, Thrive, and I found Eat, Breathe, Thrive after I realized just like how powerful yoga had been in my healing journey and in my recovery. And I trained as a yoga teacher, and I remember just Googling like yoga eating disorders, like there must be something, and then found the Eat, Breathe, Thrive website and like got involved straight away. And And so I feel so grateful to now be facilitating for Eat, Breathe, Thrive. So running 7-week programs for people who are in active recovery from an eating disorder. And I'm also, a yoga teacher based in London. And I also help with the Eat, Breathe, Thrive admin as well. So it's so nice to be involved. And thank you for having me today.
Thanks, Gigi. Okay, and on that note, we'll kick it off with some of our questions. Although I guess I think probably people know this already, but we'll just Lydia, I shouldn't speak for you, but we join you as fellow people in recovery, and since we talked about how we all define that in different ways. But one of the benefits of this conversation is that we often find we're all at different stages, and so we're really hoping that you get to hear a diversity of experiences here and understanding. And on that note, I want to drop into our conversation, and I'll offer the question, and then whoever feels called to go first, please do. We'll each take a moment to answer. And I think I just want to first acknowledge that holidays bring up a lot for everyone on the planet, not just people with eating disorders. There's so many social expectations. There's a lot of family involved, and sometimes that's being back in family dynamics that some of us try to avoid because, or don't have to confront very often. Sometimes it's missing family that isn't present. Sometimes it's being really aware of all the ways that our families or the holiday isn't measuring up to our expectations. There's grief, there's feelings of inadequacy, and then as noted in the title, sometimes there's lots of awkward conversations, not just about food, but about mental health and politics and all of it. So it brings up a lot for anyone, but I think especially for those of us who have had experiences of eating disorders, because there's so much food along with it, if it's a family gathering or if we're alone and we're feeling that, sometimes our old eating disorder feelings and behaviors and all of that come up. So my question is for each of our panelists is, what is one thing that you wish people understood about what it's like to experience this time of year with an eating disorder? And part of why I start with that question is just to kind of invite you to bring into the room all the different experiences that are in this group, so that maybe others that are out there feel known and seen and heard and like they're not alone in it.
I have my feelings about it. I think that the main thing that I wish other people could understand that haven't lived with an eating disorder, haven't experienced it, is that likely a lot of feelings are going to take place. And for me, I know that I feel, just for myself, that I experience feelings at a very strong level. So if I have more than one feeling taking place at one time, I can get really overwhelmed with how much I'm feeling. And I wish people had more awareness around, oh, it's okay to have feelings. It's okay for there to be a lot coming up, and we can give you some space to sit with those feelings, and we don't need to make them go away or make them get smoothed over or only show the happy feelings or the ones that are more easy for folks to manage or engage with. So I think for me, it's that there's a lot of feelings are going to come up, and that we can hold space for all of them and not just the ones that might be more palatable, for lack of a better word. And just the breadth which we might be experiencing those emotions all at one time. That feels really like I wish more people could understand that.
Yeah. And I would just add to that as well, like, as you say, like all the emotions, I wish people could understand, just obviously, but like how difficult it is for people who have gone through an eating disorder or going through one, and how constant it is as well. Because I think people might think it's, you're only confronted with it around meal times, but still that's 3 times a day. That's more than most addictions or any, you're just like constantly reminded. And then, and it's not just meal times, like especially over the holidays, you're always confronted by like some sort of food, I don't know, invitation, or like people can be very forceful as well when it comes to eating around the holidays. So I just think it's like constant, like if people could just know that like it doesn't switch off at any time, and just be like so much more mindful of that.
Thanks for those comments. I would head a slightly different direction. My experience of attempting to hope or wish that somebody else would understand what I'm experiencing has been not a very good experience. And so I guess I would head toward, if I'm going into, well, holiday season, here we are, I'm spending a lot more time prepping myself in all the ways that I know. I'm doing a lot more stretching and a lot more, I won't go into all the details because it may be triggering, but I'm just doing a lot more of the things that I know I need to do to keep Joan calm. And that is a very high order. Joan is not calm by definition and by nature, by neurological, everything all in the sun. But if I go into a situation, the holiday dinner, it's more important for me to go in there ready, calm, prepared, at peace, so I can let the other people do whatever in the world they have to do. And I actually find it helpful just to kind of go through the whole thing and go back home again. And if nobody ever asks me a question, which they probably won't, I just have to deal with, wow, okay, that's a really triggering conversation that's been going on for an hour and a half, and get up and leave periodically. I actually sit on the edge of things for many different reasons, but I sit on the edge so I can actually exit without causing a lot of fluffle. And those are some of my thoughts. I have never found it helpful to find a way to help anybody understand that doesn't understand. If they haven't asked, they might not want to know right now. So that's my approach right now.
Oh, thanks, Joan. That is so true. Often those that don't understand, there's no amount of explaining it to them that sort of creates empathy out of nowhere. And sometimes it is really difficult for people to empathize with the inside of an eating disorder and all of that kind of constant chatter and anxiety and stuff that I think Gigi spoke to. I think I maybe also go a slightly different direction in this. And I think it goes both for what I wished others understand, but also what I hope that people with eating disorders who are maybe in that anxiety and all of that stuff is that I'm of the opinion that holidays are hard and the emotions around it are really difficult, and that everyone is coping with it in the best way that they can and really should be given as much space as they need to do that. So, if that means sitting out a holiday meal or bringing a little, bringing their own food or something like that, I feel really permissive around that. And I'm not saying kind of like, I'm not trying to permit or say, oh, a person should be able to act out in eating disorder behaviors or any of that. I'm just saying that sometimes there's a lot of pressure from family that you have to eat this meal, or I need you to come to this event so you can see your auntie who you haven't seen in blah, 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 blah. And I just go, it's okay for everybody's doing the best they can. And the way that they're coping with it is okay. And that's my approach, both in difficult family dynamics, at really challenging meals, and I hope that those of you who maybe struggle with this, give yourself that permission that, just like Joan said, I'm going to take care of myself the best way that I can. And that's okay, even if it makes someone else unhappy.
Can I add, Chelsea, for all the whole conversation we're having, I just ran across a very lovely poem about it's okay not to be okay, which I find out is also a song. But that is super important for me to know. You can not be okay, Joan, and the ceiling's not going to fall and your car's not going to blow up, things like, oh no, I'm not okay, therefore all these horrible things will happen. It's just okay not to be okay. And I think that's real helpful. Okay, next question.
I love that. No, it's a really helpful reminder to be reminded, I think, for everyone that it's okay not to be okay, not even just in the recovery community, but for everyone right now and anyone that's having an experience. I really love how naturally this flowed into our next question. When all of our things feel overwhelming, so family, food, emotions, Joan, I feel like you bridged into this question beautifully with what helps you stay in recovery or keep going, even in a small way. Yeah, I want to open that conversation up around what helps us stay in recovery or keep going. And there's no step that's too small in this consideration.
Help me, Lydia, to know in terms of trying not to trigger people.
Yeah.
how do we do that? Do we expect people to keep themselves from being triggered, or like if I start talking about what I actually do, is that going to be triggering for people?
I would just not go into any details around like specific, like either like routine.
Numbers and all that jazz. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Got it. Okay, good. Okay, just had to ask a question. Go ahead.
I was going to go slightly into routine, but tell me if it's too much, you know. But yeah, what would I do if like things are getting really overwhelming over Christmas or just general holidays? I think like it's so important for me personally to have alone time, like despite obviously an eating disorder, feeling very alone or lonely. I still definitely need like a safe space. So and I think that's what makes the holidays so hard as well, is often maybe you're not staying in your own home. So I'd say like if you are visiting relatives or whoever, like to really try and find a safe space within that home. Just like somewhere, even if it's just a chair that like you can just go sit on by yourself if you just need to take a few deep breaths, or as Chelsea said, if you're just like not feeling good and you don't want to join in with a meal, just like to be able to somewhere you can take yourself, or like to familiarize yourself with like the surroundings so that you can step outdoors and like get some fresh air or like go on a little walk. So I think definitely taking myself away helps. And then I guess once you take yourself away, really focusing on like being mindful and focusing on your breath and just like trying, it's so hard and it's easy to say but really hard to do, but just trying to focus on like the good things about what's going on. I don't know, just like focusing on family being together and focusing on like the fortune that you have to, you know, not be alone at Christmas. But so yeah, I'd say those are just like some very small things that I would do to help with overwhelm. And sorry, one more thing is maybe also find someone I could talk to. But again, that's not easy. And like you could be visiting like a partner's family's home and they don't know what you've been through. So it is really hard reaching out to someone. But if you can, and if you do have that person that you really trust and who knows your history or who doesn't know your history, but it's just someone who you can make aware that you need to like take time out. I think that just really helps, because I guess a problem shared is a problem halved. So or having someone you can call as well, just like someone on speed dial who you know is going to be there for you.
That Gigi, that idea has saved me numbers of times when I know I'm going into a situation that is just going to be very challenging. And I call ahead, I text or call or however I communicate with people. I will try to find one or two people that I'm pretty sure that we actually agree. If I call you, will you please pick up?
Yeah, exactly. Even if they don't have anything to say, just like someone to talk to.
Yeah. That's been a real lifesaver for me. And then you can do whatever you need to do and say whatever you have to say. And they're like, which is terrific. For the response. And margins is super important to me, like what you're just talking about. Quiet alone time, but also margins between things. You know how holidays can start doing this. There's not even time to drive to the next event, much less calm yourself down. So I use my calendar and I say, okay, you just did something here, 3 days from now. You need a big old space here on the calendar, black it out or whatever you do with your calendars. That is absolutely essential for me. Otherwise I get to the next thing and I'm not there any longer. That like she's gone. And that's no good, because you can't communicate with people if you're so busy trying to take care of yourself that you're just like completely overwhelmed neurologically or otherwise. I try to take care of my neurological system. There are a million things to know about that. I know most of them, I think. That requires a lot of time and energy and effort, and it's absolutely worth it. Anybody that has neurological overwhelm on a regular basis, go ahead and study that, because I spent my whole morning getting ready for this 1/2 hour, whatever we're doing, half talk, for real. Absolutely 3 hours to do a talk, which is extemporaneous. I didn't even have to do notes. But see, I'm here and I'm present and everything's all quiet and calm, right? Stretching, I swim, there's a lot of proprioceptive, if you know what that word that means. There's a lot of proprioception I have to do to keep myself calm all that just means is basically smushing your joints, so smashing up against the wall, like, or whatever you have to do to get some information into your joints that says, we're still here, it's all good, we're still here. I'm sure the yoga, which I don't particularly practice, but I'm sure the yoga is doing that. But I don't have the words and terminology for that. So time, breathing, stretching, those are my go-throughs, and margins, very important. Thank you.
I'm impressed at how much I resonate and feel really. I thought that I was the only one that creates like margins and alone time and all of that. So perhaps there's something, I don't know, perhaps there's something kind of similar about personalities that end up developing eating disorders, or perhaps this is just something that's really good coping skills for everyone. But what Gigi and Joan just shared is something I actively practice if I'm going into a holiday setting where I have to be around a lot of other people. And I'll just acknowledge sometimes I upset people doing that. For instance, like staying at my own place, for instance, is something that I will sometimes do to give myself that quiet alone space. And that's okay. I try to be as honest, like, no, I love you. I care about you. I spend as much time as possible. And you'll get a much better version of me if I have a little quiet space of my own. And kind of holding that with love and care rather than getting into the conflict of it. So I absolutely resonate with that. I think I also want to acknowledge I've also had holidays where I've been alone, and especially early in my recovery. And I used to get just completely blindsided by how emotional that was. So I think, oh, it's fine. I don't want to do anything with anyone anyway, or it's, I don't really make it the big thing out of Christmas, or the holidays have never really meant that much. But then the day would come and it was just, I would be on the couch all day, very depressed, a bit lethargic, engaging in behaviors, and just, or having panic attacks, like really, I'm talking really, it would blindside me. So I just want to acknowledge that may be something, like there may be others here that have experienced that. And over the years, I mean, this isn't always something you can do when that's your holiday this year and it's coming, is kind of mentally and emotionally, if that was the holiday I was going to have, just trying to prepare myself for that. And that might look like doing some of the things Joan said, of planning a little bit, like putting a little structure in place so that I didn't get blindsided and into a depression and funk and all of that. So it might be going out for a really, this is when I was in a healthier place and could exercise, but a really long hike and just being out in nature and and that kind of thing helped me a lot. And then over the years, what I've done is I've tried to set up rituals of my own for holidays that aren't dependent on the kind of traditional family systems and all of that. And that has, now I have years and years of setting up those rituals and those friends and connections. And I don't have that big kind of huge wave of emotion and loneliness that used to come at holidays, and my life has shifted, but I did have that for many years. And if that's you, I think it's worth honoring it and allowing yourself to feel the feelings, if there's grief and loneliness and all of that there, and whatever you can do, maybe setting up a little bit of structure and support to keep yourself safe and kind of emotionally intact.
Love that. So it's so real, like I'm just sitting here being like, yes, these are all such real things. And that I wish I would have learned earlier. And I'm like so grateful that I've learned so much of this recently, and that I'm still learning so much about my own process and how I can help myself in the small ways. I know for me, something that feels really helpful is that I often feel like there's a lot of expectations on me and to perform a certain way. So I try to tell myself as regularly as possible, especially around the holidays, that I can release myself from any expectations that I'm having for myself. And not even consider the ones that are external societally, but just for myself to say, like, I release myself from those and I'm not carrying that with me, and I can have space from that. And also, like, this holiday season is a very heavy grief one for me, within my family, my partner's family. So for me, I I've learned that I need to be very, very honest about how I'm feeling with commitments and to try to do my best to communicate like it is not about anyone else externally. I'm doing this to take care of myself, and usually that does mean space. And that I usually need a lot more alone time of just sitting and being able to like sit with my feelings and then be able to connect when I'm ready. But trying my best to communicate that, because I think that the grief brings up loneliness. And I want to always make sure that I'm engaging with my loneliness and not pushing it aside into isolation territory, but engaging with the loneliness and saying like, oh, there you are. Like, of course, that loneliness is coming up. This is a heavy grief season, and recognizing that and honoring it. So a lot of this is like internal dialogues that I have with myself rather than tangible routines. But I try to always make space for that despite whatever else I'm doing. But the expectations feels like the most helpful for me to remind myself that I can release myself from that, and then to say like I'm going to honor my grief however that looks. And sometimes that does look like making myself just as comfortable as possible for that day and getting in my comfiest jammies, having my favorite candle around, comfort show, comfort blanket, and just saying like I can engage with my senses and allow myself to like sit with my feelings even if they're super uncomfortable. Yeah, those are my small ways that add up, you know.
Lydia, may I, whatever that's called, follow that with something? What you just said about basically honoring the feelings that you're having at the moment, in the moment. Something I've discovered about recovery work is that I cannot say on Tuesday at 4 o'clock, I'm going to go process that thing. I can't do that. And so I've learned if there's a circumstance that creates chaos in me emotionally, if there's any possibility of me stepping back and trying to process it right then, tears and the whole deal, that's my chance. And it may or may not be possible to do it another time, but I've discovered there's an absolutely amazing opportunity in the moment when it's happening to say, okay, well, this is happening and it feels like this and I feel it here and all the things you need to do. And I just want to put that in there because that particular skill has been really helpful. And knowing, guess what? This is not, you cannot call this back. It's way, way, way too deep inside of you. It's not going to come out unless you really, really push it out by circumstances. So there you are.
I relate to that very much. Yeah. And just be acknowledging when it comes up, like when those feelings come up and when it comes up, and not saying like, this is an inopportune time for me to be confronting this. I can't do it. It has to stay until 4 o'clock. It's been really tough because I think that's another expectation too that I have is like, no, I'll have the right time to process it. There will be a right time that I can confront this. And that's, I feel like, been a lot of the work too, is saying like, it is okay to have feelings and to need to process things. And like, yeah, we can let that be part of our process. I love that.
I have another question planned, but I feel like I'm going to alter it slightly. I hope it's okay because I'm having, sometimes there's these intuitive, like I want to know more. We're talking a lot about the challenges that come up around the holidays, and what I was going to ask before is, how do you manage that feeling? Like there's all these expectations that we enjoy the holidays, and how do you manage the feeling that maybe actually I'm not really enjoying this holiday? But can I ask you, go broader? Each of you are in different stages of recovery. How has your experience of the holidays shifted over the course of, like, how do you feel about the holidays now versus then? Versus, maybe it hasn't changed, I don't know, but like just generally, how do you feel coming into the holidays now, and is that different than how it's been at other times in your recovery, or what comes up?
Great question, Chelsea.
Yeah. I'm happy to start. And I'm probably sound like such a Scrooge, and such a negative Nelly, but I don't like the holidays. And I don't think that is purely because of my recovery journey or like my past experiences. I just think, and as Lydia, as you were saying, the holidays like are so triggering in so many ways, like whether it's grief, like that you're experiencing right now, or, like I feel like the holidays are such reminders of the people who, like no longer have in your life. So like previous grief as well. I just feel like I lost my dad when I was young, and I just feel like the holidays really remind me of that. And like I find them, like I can find them very sad. And I think then those sad emotions obviously in turn don't help like certain eating behaviors and things, which makes everything harder. But yeah, just in general, I think even throughout my recovery journey, my opinion of the holidays hasn't changed that much. I don't like the social pressures, Chelsea, as you were saying. I think it makes people feel really alone and like they're not doing enough. Yeah, this Christmas, I haven't wanted to do like anything or like do any social things. And like, again, I've just accepted that that's okay. And like, that's what I need this year. But yeah, I do find them very hard. And I know there are so many positives of the holidays and like it is a celebration, but yeah, for me, it hasn't really changed my opinion that I just, yeah, my heart goes out to so many other people in the during the holidays, I think. And like, I find it so hard not to be reminded of all the people who are alone or all the people who are going through eating disorders alone in hospitals or, yeah, just in a big family who don't understand what they're going through. I just, yeah, it's so many different emotions can come up around the holidays. Yeah.
I can share a little bit. I resonate so much with what you're saying, Gigi. Like I've always, I don't like it, and I think a lot of people with eating disorders really don't enjoy the holidays. There's the food piece, the family pressures, the emotions. I will say, I've kind of been on a journey with it though. I used to get incredibly depressed and have really massive lapses around the holidays. It was just every time Christmas came around, it was almost like my brain went like, oh, this is an excuse to relapse. And this, and there was all the emotions around it. So it used to really be a horrible time. Um, and then over the years, it kind of morphed and I started building kind of some of those rituals I talked about, not intentionally, but I had, friends that became like family and they had really different holidays than I was used to. And theirs were really nice. And so so that, and some of the eating disorder behaviors, or not behaviors, but even just the obsession around food was releasing a little bit. So it didn't have those stresses and I wasn't in really difficult family environments. So that like it lessened it. And I started to look forward to holidays because I really enjoyed the time I was spending with them. And now I think I feel very neutral around it. I live in the UK now, and as you can see, it is dark all the time. It's always dark. So I loathe this time of the year because of the darkness. But I do love, there's something about the UK where there's just this holiday cheer. Everybody has lights and green. And I used to hear Christmas carols and just, and now I don't mind. It's kind of cute and it's sweet that there's all of that cheer around it. And I think over a decade, I've let go of any expectations for what my holiday needs to be. So whatever it is just sort of nice. Like my partner's family loves to go on vacation during the holidays to like sunny beachy places. And sometimes I get taken along and it's awesome. It's wonderful. Yeah, cool, great. And then this year we're at home and I'm like, oh my God, we're not having to go anywhere, get on a plane and it's just chill and so now I have neutrality around it. But I really, really like truly neutral, just, something that's not the darkness. But I used to hate them. And I don't know. I don't have the same like cheer and have to decorate all the house stuff. Just I don't have that. But that's been my journey. I don't know if anybody else has been on a journey. Maybe it's just me.
No, I relate to that so much. I was thinking about it because there's such heavy grief around this time of the year for me. And I also like loved holidays growing up and remember feeling so excited. Like I could see, like my childhood bedroom was at the top of the stairs and I could see our Christmas tree like from my bedroom. And like I try to like call back those really like positive, warm memories that I had. And like that helps me feel like just like, oh yeah, like I did enjoy this time of the year at one point, and like even though they've gotten hard and they've ebbed and flowed, like calling back to those times and not thinking about all the other things that were happening at that time, but just remembering like how special that felt when I was little has been really grounding for me. But I feel like early in recovery, I very much still felt those expectations around the holidays of like, I need to have it together. I need our family to be really happy. I need everyone to like each other. Like there's a lot of pressure that I felt of like, I need to make this work. I need this to be what I have in my mind, the images of what Christmas looks like and feels like. And I feel like throughout the past 10 years of my recovery, learning that I'm like, oh, it's actually the most helpful for me if I check in and see like, oh, what feels good this year? Do I want to go out and do things at night? This year, the answer has been no, that my body is feeling much more sensitive to the cold. So if I'm going to do things, it's going to be earlier in the day and that I bundle up on the couch and watch a movie. It doesn't have to be a holiday movie, but I make some kind of, yeah, like a ritual. I want to say like a soft ritual for myself, that it's not like something I do every year, but a lot more just checking in to say like, what feels like honoring of this time. But I love to with the darkness. I'm very sensitive to that. So I do love all of the lights hung up. I do feel like there's an overall like a little like extra burst of like friendliness or like jolliness around. And I live in the city in Denver, so there's often a lot of things happening on the weekends that it feels very like communal almost. So I think taking those aspects of it and saying like, oh, there are like a lot of people that are feeling happy, and I like to feel like I like to witness that, even if I'm not feeling it. I think it's been helpful for me to say like, oh yeah, other people can be experiencing that joy, and I love to be a witness to it, even if I don't necessarily feel it. But yeah, releasing the expectations around what I feel like I need to feel like around them, and then saying like it's going to be hard and I can appreciate the lights and the movies that I watch one time a year. The Nightmare Before Christmas, I think, is one with Jack Skellington. That's like one of me and my partner's favorite movies to watch, and we just watched it the other night. But everything for us is like very like low pressure, like not a lot of like have to show up, do these things. It's a lot more like compassion, checking in, saying like, do we have the space for this? If no, we don't do it, and we just do something softer instead. So yeah, definitely the wave of like, I need to perform, need to do these acts that are very much part of the time of the year, to into now saying like, they're going to look different every year for me. And this year we're doing something completely different and I'm excited for it. So switching it up, allowing there to be, I think, that space, and not having the expectation that everything has to be the same or I have to feel the same is really freeing for me.
So I'm older, guys, and have lived through several versions of what the family looks like. The one I grew up in, the one that we raised, multiple ones that constitute where my own children are raising families. And so I also have a personal connection to the spiritual parts of the Christmas celebration, which is quite lovely because there is a focus, and I'm very conscious. We live in a college town. I'm very conscious that that is not necessarily widely shared. And the Christmas carols is making half of my friends really crazy. They're like, "Are you kidding me?" More still. But on the other hand, like sometimes we go caroling out in the neighborhood because even my friends that don't want to hear the Christmas carols are like, "What? You're out there singing? That's amazing!" You know, it's like, okay. We have an annual performance of the Messiah 2 nights or 3 days or something because it's very, very popular. This year we didn't go to that. We went to the community sing. That was like 200 people singing it, just flat out, pick up the music, ready to go. It was awesome with an orchestra, you know, people pulling their instruments out that haven't played them for 40 years. It was hilarious, but phenomenal just to have people coming into a room to sing together for a couple hours. It was unbelievable, and with no rehearsals. So that's just been really lovely. The whole presents thing has gone from, we used to celebrate the 12 days of Christmas. We didn't have any money, so we go to the dollar store and buy people Band-Aids and, you know, silly thing, a pen. But now that's calmed down because in our exact family, we only exchange one gift. We put all the names together and we exchange one gift, and boy, does that help a lot to the pressure, you know. And we have a financial limit, which I always set below everybody else's. They're like, "Joe, that's too little." So, oh, come on. So they make me push it up a little bit, but you know, a very modest limit. Those things have been super helpful, and allowing myself to say, okay, there are 15 really good things to do today, tomorrow, the next day, the next day after the next day, because this is a college town and everything's just all out of control. You probably should take a nap. What you really need to do is take a nap. So, night night, but just to be able to say, you know what, Joe, that's all very nice. And you don't have to show up and you don't have to participate. And if you do show up, you can leave halftime through. What? That's unbelievable. You can leave at the intermission. Whoa. Anyway, or you can leave it after the first song if you want. But during this time, this is actually called Advent right now, all the way up until Christmas Day. And that's actually supposed to be a time of calm and personal reflection, all sorts of stuff that has nothing to do with what's going on out there. So to pull that in and do our Advent candles and say our little prayers in the morning is really a ritual that I value a lot. And and pretty much nobody cares, but I do. So that works out pretty well.
No, thank you guys for all sharing those positives, because I can actually resonate with all of them. And even I think I came in a bit strong, because even last night I went to a carol concert, and that was my first Christmassy thing. And I was stood there again, just watching this amazing choir singing, again, without rehearsals, such cheery, joyful songs. And everyone just does put on, it is such a reflection of community and the incredible talents that people have. And everyone's got their own story, and the fact that people can put on such a brave face and come through that is so inspiring. And especially in London, as you were saying, Chelsea, there is so much magic and beauty to see. I was stood in this cathedral with all the lights turned off, and it was completely candlelit, and there's no other time of the year that I would be standing there doing that. So I guess it is really important to kind of see the beauty in some of the smaller things, and not get not look at the whole picture, but just take the small things. Definitely.
And there is space too with it being if you're there are times where it just is really painful, and to think about all of it, I think it's such a both and. I have a both and poster on my wall in my office, but allowing there to be the space for both. And I love hearing your reflection of oh yeah, there have been some things that have brought times or pieces of joy, and to allow the space for that real time is so cool to see. So thank you for sharing that reflection, Gigi. I love that.
And sorry, I'll just add to Lydia as well, going back to your point at the beginning, all feelings are welcome, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. You don't have to feel happy all day, every day on Christmas. You don't have to feel sad and then be embarrassed to feel happy, everything is welcome. So yeah, just feel it all. And as you said, Joan, take yourself off, and if you're feeling those things come up, let them come up, don't push them down. So yeah.
Lydia, do you want to ask the next question, or do you want me? Is it my turn?
No, you freestyled the last one. So I want to see if you had another freestyle to go off before, if you want me to hop back to our list.
I can. You know what? if we're talking freestyle, or just what you just said, Chichi, it just reminded me so much of that poem by Rumi, that this being human is a guest house. Have you all heard that? Oh gosh, I'm gonna have to read it now. I just it's so good. It's not very long. Is it okay if I do? It's a little okay. Please. It really fits this. So it's called The Guest House. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house, empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond.
Nice. Thanks, Chelsea.
And Chelsea, what's crazy is I heard that, I must have heard it before, but I heard it for the first time last week. and it resonated so much. And so that's so nuts that you just read that out.
It's awesome.
I love being read a poem too. I love to just like close my eyes and just picture that because it's so it feels so validating that it's not just like a me thing where I'm just like I have these waves of emotions that come in and it's saying like, oh, like we can expect that. It's okay to allow that to happen, and quite frankly it's human for that to happen. And I think I need to be reminded of that, and it's really beautiful that like yeah, that it is, poetry is universal. It's really, really helpful.
I haven't thought of that poem in like 8 years. Like I discovered it so early in my recovery, and it used to be something I turned to a lot. And it must have been a yoga teacher that read it to me, because that was when I was a little more woo, a guide from the beyond and all of that was like, yes. But it really, just that idea that in welcoming an emotion in, it actually liberates the kind of movement of emotions to come in and out, and that idea that like sometimes the sorrow and the grief does, I mean, I think the word that is used in the poem, the phrase is like clears you out. And I don't mean it in such a cleansing, but I know that the really difficult emotions that I've felt around the holidays this year have given me a great deal more empathy, so much more depth and complexity as a human being. And I wouldn't get rid of them for the world, all of the difficult kind of stuff. So I love that poem. It puts the big emotions in a much bigger perspective.
Well said. Thank you so much for sharing that, Chelsea. I really, really love it. And I'm going to come back to that. I'll pop in. I think we probably have time. I won't say that we have time for one, but I want to go into one that I really love on our list of, if you could go back and speak to yourself during a particularly difficult holiday, what would you say to that version of you? I really like this idea of like reflecting back, and with our wisdom that we have now from where we're at, I would love to hear, yeah, what we would say now with what we know. Oh, and then we can pop into this next question that we just got in the chat.
I just, not even having to create a particular time or day or whatnot. I want to walk over to her and put my arm around her and pull her close and say, "Aw," do the there, dear thing. I just feel like that would have been extremely helpful.
Yeah, I echo that, Joan. And also, I just think I go back to the holidays where I was so fearful, like, like just so scared of Christmas coming because, again, being confronted by all these food issues or whatever. But I wish I could go back to myself now, talk to myself now and just like take that power away from the food and, just be like, what if you do eat loads of food on Christmas, like that's not going to affect my long-term health at all, like it's so not a big deal. I mean, it felt like a huge deal, but just to tell myself that like it is completely okay and it doesn't have a long-term knock-on effect, like a few days if you eat loads of food and and so I think, to tell just that basically. And also that like not to set crazy rules for myself, because I think it used to, I would be like, okay, I can't eat this or I can't eat that, and just set all these rules, which then made Christmas like so difficult and so unenjoyable because I was just like so rigid and so strict with myself. And there was so much anxiety around that. So I think I'd say just like forget about any stupid rules that I'm trying to make for myself, because like I'm only probably going to let myself down and lead down a further spiral. So I would say, just like don't set rules and be kind to yourself, and really know that like it doesn't matter if I eat way too much in one day.
Oh, I love that. Gigi. I also love this suggestion that was, or this was offering that was put in the chat. I put lotion in my purse and put it on my hands in social settings to love myself past anxiety. I love that. That's a great, those little things really do make a difference. Um, I have there's two little things, well, two things I would say to myself back then is, and I mean, it doesn't sound very helpful now, but I wish I could go back and let myself know that the things that feel so big in this moment will look very, very small if you even remember them in the grand scheme of things, because the emotion and the charge around it was so big. Um, and I'm not sure I would have listened to myself, but it gives it gives me ease these days when something is like really kind of charged is to think about 10 years ago, the last time I felt discharged about something, how I feel about it now. And it helps me kind of lessen the anxiety around ruminating and what'll happen if and all of that stuff is the things that's overly charged. Um, and then oh gosh, what were you just saying, Gigi? Because it triggered something. Now it's gone out of my head.
Approved?
Yes. Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Um, the other thing is that I would tell myself that to be kind of open to things being completely different than my expectation of how they're going to go, because often I would create a whole bunch of anxiety about for before it happened that didn't even manifest in reality, and my emotions would be like it was real. This is and then the last thing that's related to that, I would like freak out about it ahead of time and it would actually happen and it wasn't that bad. It wasn't nearly as bad as I imagined. So to be aware of how that thinking ahead of and forecasting can create emotions that don't, and anxiety that doesn't need to be there. And then I think my wisdom in like my more recent self and that I navigate now is that when other people are having a really strong reaction and all that kind of stuff, I used to get into like people pleaser mode and go, oh gosh, I've upset someone and like, oh no, and now I can't take care of myself. And it would just become a whole thing. The best way to deflect and to move on is just to come in with love and care and not to react to the like, and so if someone's, for instance, if someone's upset that I'm staying on my own or something and all that sort of stuff, instead of to get into kind of a conflict around it, to come in and look, I am so excited to see you. I'm so excited to see you and spend time with you. And yeah, I've got my own place, but I can't wait to see you. And to use the positive emotion to move. And again, sometimes really difficult, but I used to almost fuel it, like the negative, and I would fuel it with more negative because I'm like, no, I'm anxious. I'm like, how dare you? How dare you? But now I just try to bring in the love and care, and I find things transform a little faster.
A helpful reframe of that. Like we can take care of ourselves and we can say like, I love you. And that's also why like I love you and I'm excited to be with you. And I'm also doing this so that I can show up to provide that love and so that I can be enjoying this too. And to not say that yeah, I think that's so helpful because it's been historically so easy for my brain to get pulled into that, like, oh, I did something wrong. Now I need to suffer and I need to stay like, or make it better for them. And then internally, like causing myself harm long term. That's so helpful. I know Chelsea, I love that you said, I don't know if I would have listened to myself because I struggle with that a lot when I'm like, would I have listened? And I think that's part of my stubbornness that I'm like, gosh, I would hope I would. I hope I would listen to myself. I think the biggest thing that always comes up is that I wish I would have allowed myself to be like myself and allow other people around me to be themselves and not feel like I need to control things or that we need to all act a certain way or like so much pressure. I think I wish I would have released pressure from myself and from others around me. Which I think then boils down to being like, I wish I would have been present and just said like, enjoy everyone for what they are and not assessing for what everyone's not or what we don't have and focusing so much on that and like comparison. I'm realizing all of these themes as I'm saying this out loud. So thanks for being on this journey with me with this thought. But yeah, allowing for things to just be without the intention of like, oh, how would this look if someone else was witnessing this and like saying like, that's not happening. We can just sit here in this and that can be enough. Yeah, I would hope that I would take that advice because I think that would have helped me move through things with much more simplicity.
Oh, I love that. I didn't feel like you were wondering at all, Lydia. I was right there on that journey with you. Um, okay, quick and rapid fire. We have 5 minutes for this one to close, and I really love this question. I'd be interested to hear how you balance when your own needs for quiet, meal plan, etc., conflict with the needs of the people you care about. For example, aging parents who want everyone to be there at specific times, etc. Well, I have a really quick response to this because I have, I am aware, I don't know if this would be true for you, but as I've gotten older and further along in my recovery, I've gotten far more boundaried and protective of myself. And that's got a good side and a not so good side, because sometimes by being that boundaried, I sort of completely neglect their needs. So I would I would look for the need beneath the detail of what they're asking. So they may be like, I need you here at a specific time. And I would wonder about what's the need there, and like what's the need beneath that. It may be, I want us all to feel like a family and be connected, or I I need everything to look like things are happy and chipper and perfect. All of there, I would be looking at that, um, and affirming and kind of validating that emotionally in a conversation. That need is legitimate and validated, and seeing if I can find a little happy medium that allows me to meet my own needs while to the best of my capacity, and sometimes a completely unreasonable meeting what is a legitimate need, even if what they're asking for is completely unreasonable and not, and kind of conflicts with. Does that make sense? There will be a legitimate human need beneath all of that. It'll be emotional, and sometimes it's not my responsibility, but recognizing that there's another human with me that has needs just like me, I would look for that and see if I can read between the lines and find something that allows me to honor myself and protect my boundaries while still, caring for another person.
I'm slowly learning to literally ask for what I need. So somebody says, okay, dinner's at 7 and please bring the blah, blah. And I'm learning to reach out to the hostess and say, so if we can't get there until, or if I need to leave at 7:15, can we modify that? And the thing is that sometimes people can, and sometimes they can't. But if I ask before I get all worked up about, oh my gosh, this is just awful, it turns out that it's no big deal. They just came up with an arbitrary time, or it's a really big deal, and get yourself over there. We have multiple nationalities now in our family system, and it's really an interesting thing to boggle. It's like, so which version of time are we talking right now? Or, whose time are you talking about? What time we, the Americans, supposed to actually show up? Just talk to us, tell us what we're supposed to do. I think that's my takeaway from this conversation is just not being afraid to ask before I get fired up and upset with myself and upset with everybody else. Just say, hey. The other trick I have is I always look for the small people in the room and interface with them, and the other people are doing whatever they're doing, and the small people are playing checkers or something. That works out pretty well.
I love that. Yeah, I think I really am feeling like this is an active practice too. I never want to, like, especially with communication things, for me, it's an ongoing practicing of like, where am I at now with my communication? What do I have the skills for in that moment? What can I actually do? But anytime I really try to say like, okay, yeah, like if I can't be there until a certain time, or, if there's something that's hindering me from getting there, can I communicate that with a person to let them know? And just say like, hey, I'm actually not gonna be able to get there till this time. Is there a specific reason why we're doing that? And trying my best to communicate around that and honoring that it is tough. It is tough to exist when we are learning our own boundaries and trying to communicate those with other people, especially if they're not well versed or know what boundaries are or know what their needs are. It provides like a really interesting space for communicating. And I know for me, I'm responsible for communicating my needs. I can't expect someone else to know that. So it's, checking in and saying like, how do we meet in the middle ground on this? Is it something that we can make workable? and coming from that place of love and kindness and compassion in it too. And Chelsea, I really love what you said about like, what's the need underneath that, right? And being able to come to that, I think, can be a really great way. I'm going to utilize that to connect to like, what are we asking here? Yeah.
Yeah, and just to summarize all of that, I agree. And I think, yeah, the key is communication, because I used to storm off like and get so angry and just like go hide in my bedroom, and like no one actually knew what my needs were, like, and people can't read your mind. So yeah, really communicate, ask why, try not to be so reactive, and also understand, like, as we've been saying, that like Christmas is a really triggering time, even for people not in recovery. So like even your grandma or whoever like is stuck in their rigid old ways, like Christmas is hard for her too, you know? So I think it's just like knowing that it's hard for everyone, and we kind of need to find a bit of a middle ground and be patient and communicate. I think, yeah, that's key.
That's beautiful. I have to say, Lydia, I laughed out loud when you say some people don't know what boundaries are. And I know we said that, it's absolutely true. And we forget because we've been so well versed in it in recovery. And then I'll also just say thank you, Gigi, for summing it up perfectly in communication. And everything we just talked about is Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg is a wonderful, and it was developed in the 80s. It is exactly this. It is respond to the need. It's very simple. And this lovely man, there are YouTube videos of him with puppets demonstrating it, which is my favorite thing to watch. And I have sent it to relatives. That we try this communication style, but it's actually been used in like apartheid to like between government officials. It's a huge methodology, but the man uses children's puppets to teach it, and anybody can learn it, and it's epic. It's really useful for families that struggle with communication. So anyhow, we're at time, so if it's okay, Lydia, I'll just close us out. Okay, by saying one, thank you for every one of you who are here with us live, who spent this time with us. For those who had their cameras on, it's so wonderful to see your faces, and those who are his name again, sorry, is Marshall Rosenberg. And it's called Nonviolent Communication. And for those of you who are in the chat and like that person, and just giving us a little feedback, thank you. I wish you all a meaningful holiday season, whatever that looks like for you. And I hope you know that you're not alone, and that EDF and EBT are here all times of year. We offer free programs and support groups and all of that. So please don't hesitate to link in and get connected and support. And sometimes just being with other humans who get it makes a really big difference.
Thank you so much, you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for inviting me to be part of this. Thank you. Thanks, everybody who came.
Thank you, Amanda, our wonderful tech human. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.